Hello Year 11 and welcome to your fourth GCSE Religious Studies revision video for Paper 1 Christian Practices. My name is Miss Smith and I am one of the Religious Studies consultants for the Federation, and I've created this video to help support you prepare for your exam. In order to do this, I will be using the revision checklist that you know you have available to you, and that you can find this checklist on Padlet or in Student Essentials, or you can ask your religious studies teacher to provide one for you. This video is going to focus on the topic in Christian practices of festivals. So if you have a look about 3/4 of the way down on your checklist, you will see that you need to know about the celebration of Christmas, including its importance for Christians in Great Britain today, and the celebration of Easter, including its importance for Christians in Great Britain today. We've also created some columns for you to tick off whether you're confident that you know 2 ways of doing something, the importance of doing this thing, and a quote about each of the topics. And the reason for this is because if you are able to do that, you will be prepared for any 1, 4 or 6 mark question on the exam paper. Plus, you'll be giving yourself some great foundational knowledge to help approach a 12 mark question. So all of our revision is going to be structured around this format to help you prepare for the different styles of questions on the exam paper. So let's start with festivals generally. So on the screen now, you can see the definition of festival. So a special or important day or period of time celebrated within a religious tradition. Now we need to know that there are 2 Christian festivals in case it comes up as a 1 or 4 marker. So the 2 ones are shown on the screen here. So the way of celebrating festival number 1 is Christmas. So that's a day, usually the 25th of December, where Christians celebrate the incarnation, when God became human. And then way 2 is Easter, which is a period of time in the spring where Christians remember the resurrection of Jesus. So for a 6 mark question, you will need to explain why things are important or why Christians do these things. So why are festivals important? Why do Christians celebrate festivals? You can actually use the same information for both of the styles of 6 markers. So they help Christians remember important events in the life of Jesus. They help Christians to focus on key natures of God. So the fact that he became human shows his love and his power. The fact that Jesus resurrected shows his power. But it also helps Christians connect as a community. So often these festivals are celebrated as a community. So for your 6 mark question and also your 12 markers, you need to be able to use quotes. Now, there's not really a direct quote about festivals generally. So you can use quotes which relate to the events that the festivals are remembering. But remember, you have to mention the Bible when you're quoting in your 6 markers. So if we're thinking about Christmas as a festival, then we can use that John 1 quote, "The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us." Or we can use that quote from Mary, "How can this be, for I am a virgin?" So that shows God's power through the incarnation. If we're thinking about Easter, we want quotes that relate to the resurrection. So he is not here, he is risen. If Christ was not raised, your faith is pointless. All right, and remembering to quote the Bible for both of those. So now let's look in detail at one of the examples of festivals you need to know about, which is Christmas, in case you get a specific question about this particular festival, which could happen. So Christmas is a Christian festival that commemorates the birth of Jesus Christ, who is believed to be the Son of God. And there are lots of different ways that Christians will celebrate this festival. So let's have a look at nativity. So this is either having a nativity scene or reenacting the nativity story. They will give presents to represent Jesus as God's gift to humanity, and also the fact that wise men brought gifts to Jesus. They will sing carols, and these are songs about the nativity story. So for our 6 markers, we need to know why Christians celebrate Christmas or why Christmas is important. So obviously it reminds Christians of the incarnation, the fact that God became flesh. It reminds Christians of God's power to become human. It reminds Christians of God's love, that he wanted to become human and help us. and it also connects Christians. So quite a lot of things you could say if you've got a question asking about the importance. For your 6 and 12 mark questions, you need to have quotes. The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. How can this be? For I am a virgin. Making sure that you quote that these are from the Bible. And we can use those in our 6 markers and our 12 markers. Right, let's have a look at the other festival you need to know about, and that is Easter. So Easter is the Christian festival celebrating the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead. And we need to think about 2 ways that Christians celebrate Easter. So we can talk about sunrise services on Easter Sunday, as that's when the women found the empty tomb. So it was early on the Sunday morning. You can mention Easter eggs, but you must link them to Jesus and you must link them to Easter. All right, so you must need to think about the fact that they represent new life or represent the resurrection, coming back to life, that kind of thing. Let's move on to then the importance. So why is Easter important? Why do Christians celebrate Easter? To celebrate the resurrection of Jesus, the most important event in Christianity, and also to focus on God's power over death. And it also reinforces a belief in life after death. Again, there is no specific questions about Easter in the Bible, so you'll need to find quotes that relate to the resurrection, which is what Easter is celebrating. So he is not here, he is risen. If Christ was not raised, your faith is pointless. And remember, for your 6 markers, you need to state that these are from the Bible. So let's have a look at some exam questions then, and let's have a look at some possible 4-mark questions. Remember, these are always explaining 2 similar or different ways in the practices section of the paper. So 2 similar ways Christians celebrate festivals, or 2 different ways they celebrate Christmas or Easter. So there are the ones that you could do if you are going to practice these on your own, which I really recommend you doing. Setting yourself a little 4-minute timer and do one of those or more of those questions, and then taking them to your teacher to be marked. But let's have a look at what a model answer would be. So this question is a different question on how Christians celebrate Christmas. So explain 2 different ways Christians celebrate Christmas. So one way is by reenacting Nativity, which is the story of when Jesus was born. For example, they will show the angels appearing to Mary to inform her that she would give birth to Jesus. So we've got a simple explanation for our 1st mark. We've developed it with an example for our 2nd mark. Then we need another way, so a different way. So a different way is by giving presents to represent the belief that God became human as a gift to the world, our simple explanation. We've developed that with saying that gifts also represent the gifts the wise men brought when they visited Jesus. So the simple explanation development, don't need to answer in full sentences. That would give you 4 out of 4. Let's have a look now at 2 similar ways Christians might celebrate Easter. So one way is by going to a sunrise service on Easter Sunday. This is because this is when the women found Jesus' tomb empty because he had resurrected. So simple explanation and then a development. A similar way is that they will go to special Easter services on Easter Sunday. At this service, they will hear a sermon about the resurrection story. So we've got a simple explanation of a development a simple way Christians might celebrate Easter with the connective underlined. A development is to link the relevant part of the story to the resurrection. The development can be a who, a what, a why, a where, a when, a how, an example, doesn't matter. And then we've got our 2nd similar explanation. So it's still about going to an Easter service, but it's about doing it on Easter Day, not on a sunrise service. Okay. Right, let's have a look at some possible 6th mark questions. So these will form a similar structure to your 4-mark questions. You'll be asked to explain 2 things, but you have to get your 5th mark by having a quote and a source, and then you get your 6th mark for applying that quote to the question. Okay, so I'm going to model one of these questions for you, and I'm going to suggest you set yourself a 6-minute timer to try the other one. So the one that I'm going to model for you is explain 2 reasons why Christmas is important to Christians. Refer to sacred writing or another source of authority in your answer. So here's the answer. It is important because it reminds Christians of the incarnation, which is the belief that God became flesh. So a simple explanation, a sentence with a connective. This is shown in the quote from the Bible, the word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. So it serves as our development, so we will get our development mark. We've got a quote with the source, so we'll get an extra mark for doing that as well. Jesus is the word, and this quote explains that Jesus became flesh, which is what Christmas celebrates. So we've now applied the quote to the question for our next mark. So that paragraph would get you 4 out of 6. To get the other 2 marks, we need to do a second explanation of why Christmas is important to Christians. It is also important because it reminds Christians of God's power, because at Christmas they remember that Jesus was born of a virgin. So a simple explanation. For Christians, the virgin birth was a miracle God performed. So I've developed that answer. So what I hope Year 11 is that this has given you a little bit of a grounding of the topic of Christian festivals, specifically Christmas and Easter, as well as a bit of an idea of how to answer 4 and 6 marks questions. Take some time now to set a timer, have a go at some of those 4 and 6 mark questions, take your answers into school for your teacher to mark, and good luck with your revision.